Welcome back, everyone, to the show. Today we have our guest, our special guest, attorney Russell D. Knight, with us again. Thank you so much, Russell, for being on the show. We're talking about international and family law in the United States. He's an expert. He's internationally known. He has two law firms, one in Chicago and one in Naples. And he has a lot of expertise over almost 18 years of his attorney's practice, right? So thank you so much for being on the show again. I'm very happy that you are able to talk with us a little bit more about family law, especially in the United States, in two different states. Yes, thank you so much. And would you like to also, introduce yourself a little bit more, things about people that don't know you yet, right? Clients that are looking for a family law attorney.
Sure. My name is Russell Knight. I'm always glad to be here with you, Vera. And I am a family law attorney. I'm licensed and have offices in Florida and Illinois. I have an extensive library of family law articles specifically for Illinois. It's smaller for Florida, I'll concede. And if you have an issue, I probably have an article that's written about it that describes what the rule of law is, what you should do in certain situations, and what to look out for when the other side tries to fight you. So if anybody has any questions, shoot me an email, give me a call, see if I can help you.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much. Today, we want to talk a little bit better about child custody and parenting plans, right? A lot of clients come to us and have big problems, right? They are separated with kids. They live in different countries, different states, even different continents sometimes, right? A lot
Mhm.
of US clients, and they want to learn more about how can we, reach the goal of co-parenting, right? How can we share visitation rights, and how does it work when we want to draft a parenting plan? So from your expertise, right, as being a total expert in this field, what would you say are the biggest challenges when it comes to custody arrangements? And would you also be able to explain a little bit the shift from just visitation rights to more like a shared parenting plan?
Sure. So most states have shifted from the concept of custody to the idea of a parenting plan. There's buzzwords like custody are gone, and now they're replaced with parenting time. It's not visitation. You're not visiting your own kid. You're having parenting time with your child. And the idea of a parental responsibilities, which is who makes decisions for the child under what circumstances. There's generally four big areas. There's education, religion, healthcare, and extracurricular activities. And sometimes when parents get along, they say, we'll both decide on it, which makes sense. And if we can't agree, we'll go to mediation. But if parents don't get along and they're never going to get along, mom might do education and healthcare, and dad might do uh, religion and
Mhm.
extracurriculars, for example. And then the parenting plan ends up being anywhere from a 15 page to 40 some page guesstimate of what the parties are going to run into. What sort of problems are they going to face? And especially because we talk about international stuff a lot, when parents don't live in the same state or, God forbid, the same country, which I just worked over a parenting plan for someone like that today, you have to be extremely specific because each parent needs to know what's going on with their child when they're in an entirely other country.
Mhm.
And then if they're in that other country, well, they need to know how they enforce these rules, whether the case is in Chicago and the child's in England, or the case is in Florida and the child is in Mexico. Like, is the paper even worth what it's printed on? But I digress. We go back and say that the parenting plan will usually have sections saying this is what the parenting time is going to be.
Mhm.
Dad's going to pick up the child, and dad's going to have the kid for this time. Mom's going to do likewise. We're going to share responsibilities, or we're not going to share them. And then there'll be a bunch of little things that come up, like the right of first refusal. What happens when mom leaves the kids with grandma for the weekend? Does dad have the right to go pick them up? Or things like what happens if the primary parent, let's say it's mom, decides I'm going to move 30 miles away. I'm going to move from Orlando to Tampa. Meanwhile, dad's in France. Does
Yeah.
dad even have a say? Yeah, he does, according to the law, because it might get today it might be Tampa and tomorrow it might be California, and it could really impact parenting time. So there's a million things that could go wrong with your parenting schedule, and us lawyers, we've dealt with it all before. So we're using all the scenarios that we've experienced to create a parenting plan, anticipating if you get in those same scenarios that our prior clients have gotten into, And then hopefully, if that does happen, you sort of have a roadmap with the parenting plan, or at least you can tell your other side, like, you weren't supposed to do this.
Yes.
And will they concede? We'll see. But at least you can go to court and say they were really supposed to do this, they didn't do it. So I'm going to say that they're the bad guy and I'm the good guy. And at least you start your new battle regarding parenting plan, custody issues, where you're framed as being the person who follows the rules, and the other person is the person who thumbs their nose at the court.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but we have a lot of cases that are, when it comes to parenting plans, right? They do not abide by it. So they just,
Yeah.
you can, sign up for anything before it gets really tricky. Then they have a fight or they have arguments. They don't stick to it anymore. Then the mother or the father, they actually move somewhere else without the kids, right? But they move somewhere else,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden they go to the family court. There they try to they change, adjust the visitation plans and the parenting plan. So how often is it actually for you to see that those parenting plans that you're drafting for your clients are really getting really like they agree to, and also the parents stick to it?
They definitely, it's trouble because kids grow up and the situation changes dramatically. Maybe the first, excuse me, maybe the first couple years, the situation's very similar to when it was drafted. But
Mhm.
4 or 5 years later, things are very different. The kids are in different sports, they're going to different schools, and then mom or dad or whoever's like, well, this is different. So I'm not going to follow a parenting plan, which is absurd on its face because it doesn't apply to the way the kids are now.
Yeah.
And they probably get away with it. And if they get away with it the first time, they probably will push on another issue until they finally get some pushback. And then they'll say, well, I already did these three things that aren't even in the parenting plan. So what are you worried about? And
Mhm.
that's why every parenting plan usually says at the beginning of the new school year, the parties are obligated to meet and
Mhm.
to decide if there's to be any changes in the parenting plan.
Yeah.
But the type of people who fight all the time, they're not the type of people who are like, hey, I can't wait to see you and
Yeah.
talk about this parenting plan.
Exactly. So it's also like a tradition of the relationship, right? So whenever,
Yeah.
however it ended, it's usually it can get better, but most of the time it takes two, of course. So when one is like the one who doesn't want to really figure it out, right, and he doesn't want to, or has a new partner, and
Mhm.
it's a new dynamic that is also against a good relationship with a husband, with the father of the kids or the mother, right? So it also contributes to like a toxic environment for the kids, right? So the kids, they're usually in the middle because it's very rare. I mean, we have cases where the kids don't want to see the father, but it's very rare that this comes
Mhm.
from them within, right? That they say, I don't want to meet
Absolutely.
my dad or my mom. So it's more, and the judges know that, right? The judges know that the kids been instrumentalized, right? And a lot of kids like manipulated by either the mom or the dad to say something or to do something, right? Because it's the nature of a human being usually to be in contact with your mom and dad. Like if something very dramatic happened, it's totally understandable that this is not the case anymore, right? But in general, regular cases, the kids would not want to cancel the mom or the dad. Right, so it's very difficult when there's like like a breakup between the parents and they cannot come together as as a parenting team anymore, right? So when we go to court, when you go to court, how often can you say you have, you achieve something that the other person will not appeal, the other party will not appeal?
Well, it's one, the decisions for parenting time are almost unappealable because the appellate courts almost always defer to the trial court
Yes.
because the trial court is the finder of fact. It has to be against the manifest weight of the evidence, which means the trial court like just got it wrong and there's what's written on paper and what happened in court. There's no way that the trial court got it right. They must have had a bad day or something, and that doesn't really happen.
Yes.
Like these situations, they always get to go to court and to go to trial is never just like, hey, he keeps forgetting his backpack when you drop him off. It is always a situation so extreme, and it almost always ends up looking like parental alienation.
Yes.
And my thought on parental alienation is that the truth is the kids love both parents.
Yeah.
And if the parent hates the other parent, to express love for the one parent they're with, they're going to say, oh, yeah, I also hate dad. And so now we're a team. And that's usually to the point that that's how it gets so bad
Mhm.
because the child is expressing love for the one parent by expressing hate for the other parent. And if truth is, if the child was with the other parent, like more times, they would say the exact same thing to the other parent. They'd say, "Oh, I hate mom because dad, I like to be around you, dad." And if that's what you like to hear, then I'll tell it to you.
Yes, exactly. So what do you recommend clients if they say, well, there is no, not coming to a bottom line, we're not coming together as a team anymore. And it's only about like, I want to have the kids at least as max, right? Like as much as I can, right?
Mhm.
And if you try everything, you to mediate, like you try everything in your power to get them on the same table to have, an agreement. But if you see there's just nothing on the horizon, right?
Mhm.
That you can get them on the table and get them sign something. What would you do in that constellation?
Well, it depends like on your jurisdiction. In Florida, one, the default is generally 50-50 parenting time, which I don't disagree with. I think it's a good starting point because there's always a starting point, even if they don't admit it. And then you sort of work backwards from that. And then it's tough to go from 50-50 to like every other weekend.
Yes.
But in Illinois, like it doesn't work that way. There's no presumption. And so instead, to determine what's in the best interest of the child, they usually appoint guardian ad litems to give a report. A judge
Mhm.
cannot know the dynamic of your home
Yes.
through the lens of you sitting in a sterile courtroom and then testifying under the rules of evidence.
Yes.
So the judge prefers to have a guardian ad litem, usually another attorney, who interviews the children, interviews the parents, interviews what's called the collateral witnesses, teachers, doctors,
Yes.
babysitters, extended family, and then says, "This is what I think is going on with this house. That I think, Dad has a great new apartment set up, and he's ready for the kids, but he's living downtown, and the kids aren't just ready yet. So I'd like to have Dad have every other weekend, and it'll get stepped up to every other weekend plus Wednesdays in 3 months." And then we'll possibly come back to court and talk about whether 50-50 is even on the horizon. And it's sort of an organic process where
Mhm.
the judge is really outsourcing their judicial authority. And then, what's the judge going to do? The judge is going to say, well, I wish there was a third party neutral that could investigate this and tell me what the truth is. And there is a guardian ad litem. The judge is going to adopt the guardian ad litem's report.
Mhm.
Unless you can find, because I represent people that don't appreciate the guardian ad litem's report. And then it's my job to either bolster or destroy the report. And that definitely does happen in court. And that's when things have gotten real sticky if we get to that point.
Okay, perfect. So, what would you say a client that says, well, my kids are already teenagers, right? And
Oh,
they
yeah.
can, because a lot of people like live in a presumption that my kid is old enough, right? When it's like 5 and older, my kid is old
Mhm.
enough to express their own will and their own wish, and they don't want to see dad or they don't want to see mom. Well, like
Yeah.
wherever the kids are living. What would you tell them to not be too enthusiastic, right? And to tell them that's not like your kid has a say so, like depending on the age, but it's not that the judge is not going to take the opinion of the kid and
Yeah.
makes a court order out of it.
The expression we use is children have a voice but do not have a choice. So a child absolutely can say, I don't want to go with dad.
Yes.
But is that the end of the story? Absolutely not. If dad can pull up to that house and the child can be put into the car, that kid is going with the dad. And
Yes.
that brings up the question, what about when you're dealing with a, 160 pound 15-year-old? Well, that's a different story. But it ends up being a problem for the parent that the kid does want to see because then we're like, well, there's only one adult in that house and it's you.
Yes.
So you've got to figure out how to get this 150-pound 16-year-old over to dad's house. That's not a dad problem. That's a mom problem now.
Yeah.
And some moms will say, okay, let's figure it out. Let's get into therapy. We'll try to work back. And some moms will wind out the clock because 18th birthday, that child can join the army, that child can do whatever they want, and they do not have to listen to any court about who they're supposed to see on the
Yes.
weekends.
Exactly.
And the court system, I just tell people, it's very fair, but it's also very slow. But the slowness can make it unfair. And there's many a time when there's been a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, especially 16. I say 14 for girls because they're more, I guess, self-actuated. And then 16 for boys, there's not a lot you can do. But they will also remember, however, even if they refuse to see you, they will remember that you fought for them. And when they turn 18, they don't have the same opinions. I'm sure you don't have the same opinions you had when you were 18.
Yeah.
They'll grow up and they'll remember, oh yeah, dad did want to see me, or mom did try to reach out. I do remember there was a court case. I do remember a lady came to the house to ask me about this. I
Mhm.
remember being in therapy. So I think kids also need to have a lot of leeway to have their own feelings
Yeah.
and be validated with those feelings. But they also need to know that one parent is fighting for them.
Yes. What would you say in those cases? We happen to have them also quite a lot where the mostly it's women. I'm not saying it's only women, but a lot of them are mothers who say, well, after they got separated, the husband or the ex-husband didn't show any interest in the young children, right?
Yeah.
So they were pretty much single parenting. They found a new partner eventually, right? They got remarried, and they think they let the new husband
Yeah.
call them dad. Right, which is a big problem right there already. So to have someone like being called dad, which is not the biological dad, or like that's the topic for another episode. Should you encourage that, or should you always tell them you're not allowed to say that because your biological dad is still forever your dad? You can call the other dad like first name, whatever you like a additional name, but you cannot replace the title dad with someone that is not your dad, right?
I don't know. I'm not in the house. I can't determine what everyone's going to say.
Yes,
And frankly, if the biological dad was seeing the child like once a month, and the child probably wouldn't be calling the new guy, no matter how wonderful he is, dad.
yes,
So I think it's a lot to. I don't like it when the courts or lawyers try to enforce kids in the way they perceive the world. I don't think that's fair.
yes,
I think
but we have seen court orders where it was specifically stated that the parent is not it cannot encourage or is has to interfere when a child is calling the new partner dad or mom because they have to point out that this is not their biological dad or mom, right? They should not like it is also a form of manipulating in a lot of families, right? To say,
yeah,
well, your biological dad doesn't care about you, but my new partner, he's here for you, right? So they try to manipulate also like, and it's bad for their development as well, right? Because the child only knows one truth, and it's from the mom or for the dad, right? They only know the truth from the parent that raises them in the house.
it's true. Yeah, that they only have that information. So it's all very sad. I wish that I could, tie that up with a bow, but like this is really work for a family therapist to get
Yes,
into and figure out what is the dynamic that's happening in that house. The
yes,
most you or I can do is write out orders to say, if you don't follow this, we will either fine you attorney's fees or take your kids away. And both of those, the attorney's fees don't do anything,
yes,
and the taking your kids away seems like an extreme
yes,
solution to
yes.
what is actually a sad problem.
Yes. So as a last question to a lot of men that might have said like I didn't deal with it correctly in the past. I neglected the kids. I was, I would try to get over a breakup. I couldn't deal with the woman. I didn't want to deal with the kids when they were young. They try to rebuild, right, the relationship with their
Mhm.
kids 10 years in, for example, right? Would you say, well, time is running, like the time is up, you cannot go to court, you cannot establish a visitation, right, or a parenting plan anymore? Or do you actually have time until what you said the number for boys is probably 16, for girls is 14?
Yeah. Well, normally what gets ordered is called reintegrative therapy. It's a therapy where the kids go to the therapist learns about the kids, the therapist meets mom, meets dad, and then makes a plan for everybody to get together. And everybody cries because kids are so mad and sad about the
Yeah,
situation. And the parents are mad and sad too. And then the therapist explains, dad does not love you, but dad wasn't around. He's trying to make this right. Would you be open to having a continued conversation? And that sometimes it only takes one visit, sometimes it takes six. But sooner or later, kids will come around and be like, if dad wants to be in my life, that's okay.
yeah,
But it is the longer you wait,
yes.
by far, the harder it is.
Yeah, but there's nothing like just to round it up, there's nothing the mom cannot block it, right? So if the father wants to be in the picture, no matter if it's 15 years after they broke up, he can, right? He can even go to court and enforce something or like have an attorney fight for it, right? And he will, in some sort of shape, he will be in the life of the kids if the kids are, open, right, to interact with the father.
I've done it for 17-year-olds where dads try to get back in the child's life, and the court will do everything it can to facilitate
Yes,
that. But the court also balances the fact that, like, this is a 17-year-old child that's about to be, 18. So they won't do it to the detriment of the child.
yes.
But they give you points for trying, even if you're late.
Yes, yes, totally. So thank you so much for the great conversation. If
Mhm.
clients in Chicago, or especially Illinois or in Florida, want to get a hold of you, how can they contact your law firm?
They can look me up at my website, RDK, as in Russell Dale Knight, legal.com, and or divorce attorney, Naples, Florida.com, or you can just call my phone in Illinois, 773-334-6311, and schedule an appointment to talk to me.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to tell new clients that are in a very difficult situation? Because family law is very emotional, it's very difficult, it's very, broad, right? So you have a lot of different things coming into the picture. It's mostly also related to other areas of law, right? What would you tell them if they are in a very tricky, difficult situation? They contacted already attorneys, they're not happy with what they heard. What would you tell them to never give up the hope and to find the
Yeah,
journey?
because family law is so broad, it's
Yes,
just not deep. Then there's probably a solution. It's just not in this narrow little area that your, brother's, sister-in-law's, cousin's uncle described as what happened in their divorce.
yes,
If you talk to a lawyer with a breadth of experience and a breadth of, real desire to know the law, they'll probably be able to think of a solution that works for you. Is the solution going to work 100%? No. Is the solution going to work 0%? Also no.
yes. Yes, and so every case, especially in family law, is so individual, right? Is
Mhm.
different for me than for my brother. It's different for my cousin. It's every breakup is different, and every family dynamic is different. So it's wrong if people say, "Well, my situation is so difficult, no one can ever solve it," right? Because
Yeah.
attorneys, especially family law attorneys, have so much experience in dealing with those kind of high conflict cases, which they are, right? High
Yeah.
conflict and high emotional cases. So is there any, like a last tip from an expert like yourself, to tell clients who are very desperate at this moment?
Oh, I would say that what did Martin Luther King say? That the arc of history is long, but it leans towards justice. It really does work that way. The system has problems, but if you work the system consistently, the person on the other side of the system, a judge, will lean towards justice if you tell your story with honesty, veracity, and authenticity.
Yeah, great words. Great words. Thank you so much, Russell. Yes, talk to you soon. And thank you so much for joining on the show.
Okay, great. Thanks.